And welcome back. We have a 2006 Chevy Malibu and we're going to go ahead and change the front strut today. Now there is a clunking noise coming from it, whether you're stationary or you're driving around. As you turn the steering wheel left and right, there is a noticeable clunking sound. So we're going to go ahead and change that, and later on in the video I will show you exactly the noise I'm talking about once we get to that spot. And now you could go ahead and lift up your vehicle. As you can see, I'm lifting it from the subframe, so it's a very safe and sturdy place to lift the vehicle from. Now if you do not have an impact gun, you want to make sure you loosen your lug nuts while the vehicle is still on the ground. Since I have an impact gun, that doesn't really apply to me, so that's why I'm lifting it up first. And after you get it lifted up, make sure you use jack stands. Do not rely on your floor jack because it's not safe at all. Now this vehicle is here for a few different problems, one of them being the strut, but I also have to replace a lower control arm and a wheel bearing. I'm just going to go ahead and record everything all together, and I'm just going to edit the videos to make it into separate videos, meaning there's going to be a video on the strut, which is this one, a video on the wheel bearing, and a video on the lower control arm. Now you may notice that the time of day or even the setting, because later on I'm going to be in the garage, is going to change, and that's just me editing the video to make it all make sense, simply because I don't want to have to take things apart twice. If I'm in here doing the strut, it only makes sense to knock out the wheel bearing while I'm here. Now at this point I'm just spraying everything with penetrating oil just to help it come off a little bit easier. You notice that the ABS sensor harness was just strapped on with some wire ties or zip ties, whatever you want to call them. So I just went ahead and cut those off to get it out of the way. And now we're going to go ahead and remove this fastener. Now I don't think you have to remove the nut completely. I did on this one, but that was just, I didn't know any better. But I think you could just kind of like get it halfway off and then just wiggle the bracket until it does come off. Now this right here, you're going to have to hold the bolt from the left side and come on the right side and try to get the nut off of it. Now these can be on here pretty tight. This is why I'm using my impact gun. You could definitely do this with a ratchet, but you may have to put a cheater pipe on it or even use a breaker bar. Now that the bracket is out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and hit the fasteners with my hammer to try to drive them out. Now I feel okay hitting them with the hammer because the threads don't come all the way to the end, so there really isn't a good chance of damaging the threads. If you give it a few hits and they still don't want to move, meaning that they're stuck in place, you may want to thread the nut back onto the fastener, and that way you could give it some harder hits without any chance of slipping and damaging the threads. And this is part of the job where things can go sideways really fast with the stabilizer links, because they usually don't want to come off. As you can see here, the stabilizer link is just spinning, meaning the ball joint is just spinning. Luckily for me that these are aftermarket stabilizer links, so they have a provision on the back to hold them with a wrench like I'm doing here. But I'm not sure if the original stabilizer links have this provision. Usually they have something drilled right into the stud, so you can use an Allen key to hold it and use a box end wrench to take the nut off. And it could get difficult and really frustrating. You may want to pick up a set of extra stabilizer links just in case you have to end up cutting these things off. Now that we have everything disconnected, I'm going to go ahead and turn the strut left and right so you could hear the noise that we were having. And this is just one of the problems. The other one is the obvious problem that the strut itself is leaking oil. Now it's time to remove the 3 fasteners on top of the strut tower that hold the strut in place. Now we're only going to remove 2 of them completely, and the final one we're just going to go ahead and loosen it up, and then we could reach around, hold the strut and support it so it doesn't fall down and potentially damage something on the vehicle, or even worse, hurt yourself. So while you're supporting the strut from the bottom, then you could remove that final nut and remove the strut. Now that the old strut is removed, you want to grab your new fasteners and get them ready to make things easy on yourself when you're installing it.
These nuts. Ha! Got him!
And now you could go ahead and grab your new strut, and installation is reverse of removal. So just go ahead and align everything and put it right back in there. And I'm going to go ahead and thread on one of the nuts to take up the weight of the strut. That way you don't have to carry it anymore. Then once that's in place, you go ahead and install the other two nuts, but you just want to put them on there finger tight for now. You don't want to tighten anything down just yet until everything else is in place. Here I'm moving the ABS sensor wire harness off to the right side of the strut where it belongs. Now we could go ahead and grab the knuckle and push it into the strut. We want to try to get everything aligned. It can be a little bit tricky, which is why I'm using a screwdriver to give me the extra leverage that I need. Once you get everything aligned, just go ahead and grab your fasteners and push them through. Now you're not going to be able to get them all the way through because near the head of the fastener there are splines. So what you can do is just go ahead and grab your hammer and lightly tap them in. And to drive them in the final way, you're just gonna have to go ahead and put the nut on the fastener, and as you're tightening it down, it's gonna draw in that fastener all the way. Here I'm just applying a little bit of blue thread locker. When I removed the fasteners, it looked like there was some sort of trace of a thread locker on there previously. So I'm just gonna go ahead and reapply it, plus it's just a personal preference of mine to use it. Now here's something I didn't notice until I was editing. I'm actually using an 18 mil wrench here when before I stated that you need a 15 mil. And the reason for that is because the fastener itself has two flat spots cut into it, and that's where you would fit your 15 mil. But if you're going to use the box end of a wrench on it, I suppose the 18 mil actually works because obviously I'm using it here. Now this is what I was talking about earlier. It's a different time of day and I'm actually in the garage now. The weather outside got real bad real fast, so I had to move into the garage. At this point I've already got the new wheel bearing installed, and this is why I'm torquing everything down to spec. So I hope this makes sense to you. So from here on out, I'm going to be jumping back and forth between footage from outside and footage inside the garage, and it's edited in a way so it could still make sense to you. Now it's time to reinstall the stabilizer links, and this one actually put up a really good fight. At this point I only have one side of the vehicle lifted up, and sometimes that can cause trouble. So you want to go ahead and lift up the other side of the vehicle as well. You just want to get the tire off of the ground, and you want to get the stabilizer bar in sort of a neutral state, and that's going to help you to install your stabilizer links because there's no preload on it at this point. But as you can see, I'm still having issues with that, and I really think that has to do with these aftermarket stabilizer links. See, these actually have a Zerk fitting on the back for grease, and it's hitting the rail or the body of the vehicle. So that's really interfering with it, which is why I had to turn the steering wheel to the right and give me that extra clearance. And as you can see, now I was able to get this in. So I don't know, I'm kind of skeptical about these stabilizer links. I don't know how I like the Zerk fitting being on the back side of them. And now we could reinstall the ABS wires right back onto the bracket where it belongs. And I'm going to go ahead and use zip ties or wire ties to hold the ABS connector harness right back where it used to be, just how it was. But I'm not really worried about this because, as you know already, the wheel bearing is getting changed and it's going to have a new connector end on it, and I actually plug it in how it's supposed to be, so no more zip ties after this. And now we could go right back underneath the hood again, and we're going to tighten down the 3 nuts that hold the strut down. So I'm actually glad to be using my Milwaukee ratchet because I've gone maybe a month without it because it was getting warranted. So I'm just really excited to have it back at this point. And of course, go ahead and tighten down the nuts to spec. Now it's time to put the wheel back on the vehicle and lift it up once again to take out the jack stand and put the vehicle right back on the ground again. And that's pretty much it. So don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Patreon, you know, all that social media garbage. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. Hey, whatever floats your boat. But if you're considering subscribing, don't forget to hit that notification bell. And like always, thanks for watching.